You probably believe you're safe. After all, you eat better than most people, you stay active, maybe you even exercise regularly. But what if I told you that none of that guarantees anything? And worse, what if the biggest threat to your heart is something you cannot feel? There is a type of problem that grows silently, no pain, no warning, no clear signal. People who seem perfectly healthy continue living normally, running, working, smiling, until suddenly, everything stops. No time to react, no second chance. And the most frightening part is that, in many cases, it could have been detected earlier. In this video, you will understand exactly how your body might be hiding a fatal risk right now, why standard tests fail to show it, and the only real way to know whether your heart is truly safe, or if you are living with a ticking time bomb without realizing it. He always believed everything was fine. He ran in the morning, ate better than most people, and in the mirror, he saw someone who seemed in control of his health. But the human body, it doesn't play fair. There is a brutal difference between looking healthy and actually being safe. And that's exactly where the invisible danger hides, the one most people never dare to face. What's most unsettling is that this kind of problem doesn't arrive with noise. There's no clear warning, no early pain, none of the classic signs people expect. Instead, it grows silently, like a crack hidden inside a structure that looks perfect on the outside. And the more confident someone feels about their healthy routine, the more they lower their guard. And perhaps the most uncomfortable point of all is this: it's not about sedentary or careless people. It's often the opposite. Disciplined, active, focused individuals, exactly the kind of people you would assume are protected. But then a question changes everything. If even these people are at risk, what exactly is happening inside the body without anyone noticing? He could run for miles without stopping. His heart was strong, his body responded well, and everything suggested it was working perfectly. But behind that flawless performance, something was happening that he couldn't feel. A silent blockage growing without any warning. And that's where everything changes, because the human body is extremely good at hiding problems until the very last second. What's most impressive is how the body adapts. Even with a severe obstruction, blood still finds its way through, performance remains intact, and life goes on as usual. It creates a false sense of security, like driving a car with an engine about to fail, but with no warning light on the dashboard. And when the alert finally comes, it's often too late. And here comes the most disturbing part. For many people, the first symptom is not pain, not fatigue, not shortness of breath. It's the end. No warning, no time to react. That's why understanding what's really happening inside the body stops being curiosity and becomes survival. Because if everything looks normal on the outside, what could be happening on the inside? When he thinks about the heart, he imagines just an organ beating. But reality is far more complex. The heart is not just a muscle. It's a machine that works non-stop, demanding a constant supply of oxygen to keep functioning. And to sustain that demand, it depends on an extremely delicate system that most people don't truly understand. That system is made up of the coronary arteries, responsible for supplying the heart itself. It's almost ironic. The organ that keeps the body alive depends on small pathways to survive. A good way to visualize this is to imagine a massive tree, the heart being the trunk, and the arteries acting as roots that deliver essential nutrients. If one of those roots fails, the impact is not isolated, it affects the entire structure. Among these roots, some carry much more weight than others. The right coronary artery, the left coronary artery, and especially a specific branch that supplies the most critical part of the heart. And it is precisely in this region that one of the most dangerous silent threats exists, something that, when it fails, leaves no room for error. There is a part of the heart that doctors did not name lightly. They call it the widowmaker, and it is not an exaggeration. This specific artery carries the responsibility of supplying the most important region of the heart, the one that literally keeps everything functioning. If it fails, it is not a partial loss. It is a complete collapse. To understand this simply, imagine the tree again. If you lose a branch, the tree continues to live. But if you cut the trunk, there is no recovery. That is exactly how this artery works. Small blockages in other areas may go unnoticed, but here, any failure has a devastating and extremely fast impact. The problem is that this threat does not appear suddenly. It builds slowly, layer by layer, over the years, without pain, without warning, without interrupting daily life. And when it finally manifests, it is no longer about prevention, it is immediate reaction. But to understand how something so serious can form in complete silence, we need to look deeper into the structure of the arteries. He never noticed when it started. There was no specific moment, no defining event, just small damages repeated over the years. High blood pressure here, a spike in blood sugar there, maybe stress, maybe habits that seemed harmless. Like silent wear and tear, the artery walls began to suffer microscopic injuries, so small that the body doesn't even signal them. And like any intelligent system, the body tries to fix the problem. It sends LDL cholesterol as if it were a repair material, a kind of filler to patch those imperfections. Then the immune system steps in, trying to clean and protect the area. But in this process, something goes wrong. These cells begin to accumulate fat, harden, and form something that should not be there. Over time, this accumulation turns into plaque, a mixture of cholesterol, calcium, and cellular waste that consolidates inside the artery. And the most dangerous part is that this happens without pain, without discomfort, without any clear signal. It's like an invisible layer forming inside, and the more it grows, the more the body adapts. But this adaptation may be hiding something far more dangerous than it seems. He always believed in what seemed logical. If something is clogging, then the flow must decrease. And at some point, the body will warn you, right? Shortness of breath, chest pain, some clear signal that something is wrong. That's the image most people have, like a pipe slowly closing until it eventually stops completely. But the human body doesn't work that way. In reality, the opposite happens. Instead of the artery simply narrowing, it begins to expand to accommodate the growing plaque. It's as if the pipe increases its diameter to maintain normal flow. Blood continues to pass, performance remains strong, and the person keeps living without any suspicion. This phenomenon even has a name, positive remodeling, and it is both brilliant and extremely dangerous. The result is a perfect trap, because while everything appears normal on the outside, inside the situation may be far more advanced than any basic test would reveal. And this completely destroys the idea that if I feel fine, I am fine. In fact, that is exactly where the greatest risk lies. Because if the problem isn't the flow, then what actually triggers the critical moment? Up to this point, everything seemed under control. Blood flowing, body functioning, no pain, nothing to justify concern. But the real danger was never the slow growth of the plaque. It's its instability. Because the structure that formed over years is not as solid as it seems. Often, it's fragile, almost like a bubble ready to burst. Imagine a wound covered by a thin layer of skin. On the outside, it looks protected. But a sudden movement, a spike in pressure, intense physical effort, and that layer tears. That's exactly what happens inside the artery. The plaque ruptures suddenly, exposing its contents directly into the bloodstream, and that's when the body enters emergency mode. The body interprets it as a severe injury and reacts the only way it knows, by forming a clot to seal the problem. But inside the heart, that solution becomes a disaster. Within minutes, the clot grows until it completely blocks blood flow. What was silent, invisible, and controlled turns, in a matter of seconds, into a fatal event. But this is not the only way the heart can fail. There are even more deceptive scenarios happening without a total blockage. When all of this happens, plaque rupture, the body's reaction, clot formation, the situation quickly becomes what most people recognize as a classic heart attack. Here, there is no middle ground. Blood flow simply stops. It's as if someone has completely shut off a critical valve. And the heart, which depends on constant oxygen, begins to suffer immediately. What's most surprising is how fast this process unfolds. It doesn't take hours. In many cases, it happens within minutes. The artery that once seemed functional, even with hidden issues, is now completely blocked. And without oxygen, the heart muscle begins to die, cell by cell, second by second, with no possibility of recovery unless there is rapid intervention. That's where the phrase "time is muscle" becomes brutally real. The longer the blood flow remains blocked, the greater the permanent damage. But as severe as this is, there is another scenario that doesn't follow this pattern, where the problem isn't a total blockage, but something far more subtle and equally dangerous. Not every heart attack involves a complete blockage. And that's exactly what confuses many people, especially those who live an active lifestyle. Because here, the problem isn't a fully closed artery. It's something much more subtle. The heart demands more than the body can deliver. And that gap, even if small, can be enough to cause collapse. Imagine someone running, increasing their pace, heart beating faster and faster. At that moment, the demand for oxygen skyrockets. But if there's a partial blockage, even if it doesn't seem severe, it limits how much blood can get through. At rest, it makes no difference. But under stress, it's like trying to put out a fire with a weak hose. It simply can't keep up. And the most dangerous part is that the signs are not obvious. It's not the intense pain people expect. Sometimes it's just a strange feeling, a drop in energy, slight nausea, easy to ignore. And that's what makes it so deceptive. Because while the person is trying to understand what they're feeling, the heart is already entering a critical state, and there are factors that can make the situation even worse. At this point, it becomes clear that the problem is not simple. But there are conditions that can make everything significantly worse. Because it's not just about limited blood flow, the heart itself can start to lose coordination. And when that happens, the risk is no longer just structural. It becomes electrical. One of the most critical factors is a high heart rate. The faster the heart beats, the less time it has to fill with blood between each beat. It's like trying to fill a container while the tap opens and closes too quickly. It never reaches full capacity. Now imagine this happening exactly when the body needs oxygen the most. The system begins to fail due to inefficiency. And when atrial fibrillation enters the picture, the situation becomes even more chaotic. The heart loses its coordinated rhythm and begins to quiver instead of contracting properly. This disrupts both flow and oxygen delivery, creating a dangerous combination. Less blood being pumped and less oxygen reaching the tissue. And in this scenario, a critical question arises. If all of this can happen without clear symptoms, when does the body actually warn you? He always believed the body would send a clear signal when something was wrong. A pain, a discomfort, anything that could serve as a warning. But there's a detail almost no one knows. The heart only starts to complain when the problem is already quite advanced. Before that, it simply adapts and keeps functioning as if nothing is happening. In most cases, blockages below 50% go completely unnoticed. Blood flow is still sufficient, performance doesn't drop, and the person continues their routine normally. It's only when the narrowing approaches around 70% that more classic signs begin to appear, like that pressure in the chest when climbing stairs, which disappears when the person stops. It's like a warning light turning on, but only when the system is already under stress. And here is the point that completely breaks the logic. Most heart attacks do not happen in large blockages, but in smaller, more unstable plaques. In other words, what seems less dangerous is actually more likely to rupture unexpectedly. This changes the entire way we think about risk, because if you can't rely on symptoms, the question is no longer, when will I feel something? It becomes, how do you find out before it happens? Even with all these risks, the body still tries to work in your favor. There is a little-known mechanism, almost like a silent backup plan, that activates over time. When an artery begins to face limitations in blood flow, the heart can create small detours, alternative pathways to deliver blood where it's needed. This process is known as collateral circulation. It's like a city that, facing constant traffic on a main road, starts opening side streets to distribute the flow. Over time, these pathways strengthen and help maintain the system even when significant blockages exist. And this explains something intriguing: why some people survive critical events while others do not. In younger individuals, this system hasn't had time to fully develop. In older ones, these detours can make the difference between life and death. But this raises an interesting point. If the body can build these alternative routes, is there a way to stimulate this process before it's too late? He always heard that exercise was good, but never imagined it could literally buy him time. It's not just about burning calories or improving appearance. Something much deeper is happening inside the body. When the heart is exposed to consistent stress, it adapts in ways that go far beyond visible performance. Training methods like Zone 2 and even higher intensity efforts like HIIT act almost like internal conditioning for the cardiovascular system. They force the body to handle greater oxygen demands, and over time, this stimulates the growth of those alternative pathways, the collateral vessels. It's as if the body is preparing itself for a crisis before it even happens. And the most interesting part is that this doesn't require anything extreme. Brisk walking, light jogging, short bursts of intense effort can already trigger this adaptation. But here's the important detail. Even strengthening the system does not eliminate the risk completely, because there is one factor that no adaptation can ignore, and it is directly tied to time. Everything may seem under control until it suddenly isn't. When blood flow is interrupted, the clock starts ticking in a way few people truly understand. This is not a metaphor, it's literal. Every minute without oxygen means heart cells are dying, one by one, with no possibility of recovery. In the first few minutes, damage may still be reversible. But as time passes, the situation changes rapidly. Around 20 minutes, irreversible injury begins. And if the interruption continues for close to an hour or more, healthy tissue is replaced by scar tissue, areas that will never function the same again. It's like replacing a powerful engine with a damaged one. Performance will never return to what it was. That's why, in hospitals, there is a phrase that summarizes everything: time is muscle. The faster the intervention, the higher the chance of preserving the heart. But there is one problem: to act quickly, a person must recognize what is happening. And that's exactly where many fail, because the signals are not always as obvious as they seem. He always believed he would recognize it instantly. That intense chest pain, radiating down the arm, just like in the movies. Impossible to miss, right? But reality doesn't follow cinematic scripts. In many cases, the signs are much more subtle, and that's exactly why so many people ignore what their body is trying to say. For some, especially men, the symptoms may follow this more classic pattern. But even then, they don't always come with the expected intensity. Sometimes it's just a mild pressure, a strange discomfort, something easy to dismiss as fatigue or stress. And while the person tries to rationalize it, time keeps passing. Now, when it comes to women, the scenario can be even more misleading. Extreme fatigue, shortness of breath, a burning sensation similar to acid reflux, signs that are rarely associated with heart problems. And perhaps the most unsettling of all, a sudden, inexplicable feeling that something is wrong. Not clear pain, almost an instinct. And when that feeling appears, ignoring it can be a mistake that offers no second chance. When the problem finally reveals itself, there is no room for hesitation. At that moment, everything is about restoring blood flow as fast as possible. And this is where one of the most impressive procedures in modern medicine comes into play. No open chest, no invasive surgery like many people imagine. Doctors can reach the heart through a much simpler path. They enter through an artery in the wrist or arm, guiding a small tube until it reaches the exact point of blockage. It's almost like navigating an invisible map inside the body. Once there, a tiny balloon is inflated to compress the plaque against the artery wall, reopening the pathway for blood flow. Then, a metal structure is placed to keep it open, the stent. It's fast, precise, and often saves lives within minutes. But here's the key detail. All of this happens after the problem has already manifested. In other words, it's an emergency solution, not prevention. And that raises an unavoidable question. If we have the technology to fix it after it happens, is there a way to detect it before it becomes critical? He always trusted routine exams. Those results saying everything looks normal created a sense of security. But there's something most people don't realize. These tests show what's circulating in your blood, not what is already sticking to your artery walls. And that's exactly where the problem may be developing. To truly understand your risk, you need to go beyond the basics. One of the simplest and most powerful tools is the CAC score, which measures the amount of calcium buildup in your arteries. It's quick, direct, and can reveal what standard tests cannot. A score of 0 brings reassurance. But when numbers rise, it becomes a clear warning that something is already happening. And there is an even more advanced level of detection, the CT angiogram. This test doesn't just show hardened plaque. It identifies soft, unstable plaque, the most dangerous kind. It's like having an early warning radar inside your body. And once you can see the risk before it happens, the question is no longer what if. It becomes, what are you going to do about it? He spent his life believing he was safe. But the truth is, safety was never about appearance or feeling. The biggest mistake is assuming that feeling fine means being protected. Because as you've seen, the body can hide serious problems for years, functioning perfectly while something dangerous grows silently inside. The real issue isn't just the disease, it's the lack of awareness. When you don't see the problem, you don't act. And when you don't act, you rely on luck. But health should never depend on luck. It should depend on clarity, decisions, and conscious action. And this is where everything shifts. Because now you know you can't trust just the feeling of being healthy. The question is no longer, am I okay? It becomes something much more direct. What do you actually know about what's happening inside your body right now? Now that you understand how all of this works, the question is no longer theoretical. It becomes personal. What are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you keep trusting the feeling that everything is fine? Or will you look for real answers about what's happening inside your body? Because the truth is simple, your heart doesn't warn you in most cases. It doesn't give clear signals, it doesn't offer second chances. And that's exactly why those who act early live longer. And those who ignore it take a risk they don't even see. So tell me, when was the last time you truly investigated your health? Not just basic exams, but something that shows what's really happening in your arteries? Will you wait for a warning, or will you get ahead of it? If this content opened your mind in any way, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here you'll start seeing what most people only discover too late. And now that you know, the choice is yours.